Hi guys, so welcome back to 17 square meters garden. It's the end of the month, so as per usual I'm gonna give you guys a tour of my balcony garden to show you some updates on the plants, on the projects, to show you what has changed since the last month. So just as a quick recap, the month of July was a little bit tricky. First of all, it was really hot. We had temperatures above 35 degrees Celsius almost every single day, so a lot of plants got sun scorched. Even, with a couple of hours of morning sunlight, it was a bit too intense for a lot of the plants. Secondly, we had a few thunderstorms with hail, and obviously my balcony, my terrace is uncovered, so whenever there is hail or any other severe weather conditions, there's nothing I can do to protect my plants. I mean, I protect the most fragile ones. Usually I use some fleece or something like that to protect the leaves from being damaged by the hail. But for the rest of the plants, they're on their own. And lastly, we have infestation of tiger mosquitoes. And this probably is the biggest issue for me because I can't even go out here to garden or to calmly water my plants. I have to wear long sleeves, long pants and long socks, and even then they still attack me, and their bites can cause you allergy and stuff, so they're very aggressive and it's really bothering. But the last couple of days it's been a bit cooler, so I was able to go out on the balcony to do some garden work, to clean up a little bit. So now the balcony is clean and ready for me to show you. So let's turn around and let me show you how the things look at the end of July. Okay, so let's start in here. There is not much happening in here. It's the corner of my balcony where I store all of the plants that are out of season. For example, you can see here my lilies. There are some hellebores that are gonna bloom in winter, and some other pots, empty pots, and some plant supplies that I'm not currently using. But it's also a part where I keep my edible plants. So we have my alpine strawberries that have been producing berries like crazy, and they are super sweet and very aromatic. We have blueberries. They're still very young bushes, so they don't produce a lot. In one of my last videos I mentioned that I went to the garden center and they were just throwing away summer bulbs and summer tubers that they couldn't sell, and they were throwing them away, and then they found a few healthy ones and they asked me, would you like to save them? Would you like to take them? Because it's such a shame to throw them away. Maybe you can still plant them in your garden and they will still bloom for you. So they gave me for free 4 or 5 bulbs and tubers, and I planted them, and now I have a dahlia growing on my balcony. And obviously I grew dahlias in the past, but they don't bloom on my balcony because there's not enough sunlight for them to bloom. But I planted this one and it's doing exceptionally well. It's looking really healthy and it even produced flower buds. So I'm very curious to see what happens. And as we move this direction forward, you can see already my Japanese maple orange dream has bounced back. It is looking good. It's not looking gorgeous as it was, but I'm very happy because it leafed out again after, it almost died when I was away on holidays. So it's looking good. I'm really happy. And in this corner, I have some perennial plants and some annual plants. So perennial plants here are the snapdragons that they bloom in several waves and they are just out of bloom. I pruned them, deadheaded them, and now I probably will have another flash of blooms until the end of summer. Some geranium that I planted this year as a bare root, so it's not blooming yet, but probably next year I'll have some blooms. And if you have seen my last video, I bought some anti-waste basket of 15 plants. They were only for €5 and you had 15 annual plants. So we have some geraniums, and look at them. They start to produce flower buds already, some petunias, and these sweet potato vines. So obviously they look a little bit miserable, but I think that they still have enough time to produce a few flowers and to fill out those containers. And some new lisianthus that I bought at the grocery store. It's producing some flower buds as well. For this part of my balcony, I bought 2 new flowers as well, also at the grocery store, because as I mentioned, some of my plants died during the heat wave. So I bought some really bright yellow begonia, because begonias are such a nice and low maintenance plants. They will bloom all summer long They are not fussy at all. And in the basket here I planted some bouvardias. I have never had bouvardias on my balcony, and as you can see there is a tiger mosquito on it right there waiting to bite me. So just a close-up on the annual planters. We have a Begonia semperflorens looking absolutely gorgeous. Such a nice plant, you know, doesn't require much, it just blooms all summer long. San Vitalia procumbens is a new one for me. I have never grown it on my balcony before. It does really well in part shade, but it's very, very thirsty. Like all of these plants will look good, but this one will be the first one to wilt and to, you know, need water almost every day. As I said, lobelia is not looking the greatest. It got sun scorched a bit. Then we have calibrachoa or million bells or super bells, depending on how you want to call it. And Euphorbia diamond frost. Really love this plant. It attracts all kinds of strange small insects. A beautiful white cloud of petals, because these are actually petals, not flowers. On the table here I have two other bulbs, those that I got for free at the garden center. We have Mirabilis that also has some flower buds and it's about to bloom, and some Amaryllis. And I had another one that was like really bright red, but it's now done blooming, and this other one is just now starting to grow. So as we move this direction, geraniums are holding up. People often ask me how I deal with the geranium bronze. You can see the geranium bronze butterfly on the plants right now. So I don't use any pesticides or anything like that. My garden is pesticide free, and my geraniums do look miserable at the end of the season, because obviously the geranium bronze lays eggs, they then hatch to caterpillars, and those eat the plant leaves, they burrow into the stems causing necrosis. So what I do whenever I see a part of the plant that is not looking good, or clearly there has been some caterpillar activity, I just you know, pinch them off. I prune stems. If I see that the stem starts to have a necrosis, I prune it. I'm not sure if I can show some better example in here, because I was just I just did it, like I just did a cleanup and I removed a whole bunch of dead stems. But yeah, but generally by the end of the season my geraniums look pretty bad. But I continue to feed them with fertilizer, and they are quite old, so I think they're a little bit more resistant than if they were just annual plants. So yeah. And now a bit of a sad look of my Acer garnet. So Acer garnet got pretty badly sun scorched in the 40 degrees heat, because you know, when you combine heat with the wind on the 7th floor, that's unfortunately what it causes to plants. They get leaf scorched and it's looking pretty bad at the moment, so that's a little bit sad, obviously. And we are arriving at the end of the balcony. This is the shade corner. I have been just working on it, and I promised you guys that I will show you in a video how I'm kind of transforming this place, but honestly I still don't know exactly what I want to do in here, so I just repotted my new plants and I just left it this way, because I still have to think about this. So in the corner here we have two hostas, Hosta Royal and Hosta Halcyon. We have Carex Evergold, we have Branera macrophylla, and the new plants here to the left we have Podophyllum, then Begonia. That's a houseplant and it's gonna go indoors for the winter time. Hacanocloa, Macra, all gold, and some hellebore that will bloom in the winter. And then obviously the new fern that the name of I don't remember anymore. And the beautiful Clematis montana Maylene that blooms in the spring is growing like crazy. Look at this. There are stems everywhere, so I'm training it above the windows, and hopefully by next spring I will arrive at the end there and I will have a beautiful wall of pink Clematis flowers in the spring. But below my Clematis there is Euonymus. It's kind of like a sort of a moon garden. I don't know if you can tell. You know, we have a lot of white and green, so kind of like a moon garden with white blooms. So Erigion carvinskianus, Tiarella, and some cosmos. And cosmos surprisingly is blooming. I mean, it's not looking the greatest, but we have a few blooms. I can cut some flowers for my mini bouquets, so I am happy. Okay, you guys, so this is how the balcony looks at the end of July. And sometimes, I feel like my balcony lacks a lot of color, like there's not enough flowers. But then, I remind myself, there were years where I would buy a lot of annual flowers. Like my balcony would be filled with flowers, with all kinds of annual flowers. But then, the issue with annual flowers is that they look beautiful in the summer, but then you are left with nothing in autumn, winter, or in spring. So I invested in a lot of perennial plants. So my balcony garden at this point is mostly filled with perennial plants. And perennial plants, they usually, they bloom in waves, or they bloom only at a certain time of the year. So I have perennials that bloom in the spring. I have perennials that bloom in summer, and then perennials that bloom in autumn and then in winter. So I try to incorporate plants that bloom at different times of the year. So, there's always something beautiful to look at. So, my balcony garden may not be overfilled with summer compositions or annual flowers, but it is a perennial garden. I treat it as a real garden. So I try to incorporate plants like you would normally do in your real garden. You will have plants for different seasons of interest. That's exactly the same what I'm trying to achieve with this small balcony garden. So hopefully you enjoyed this little tour. I'm going to head back inside because it starts to rain and I have at least 5 mosquito bites. So yeah, guys, thank you so much for joining me today. Thanks for watching, and I will see you again next Saturday. Bye.